So making the transition to full democracy from the Dark Ages relatively peacefully. I'm not saying there's no murder that happened, but no mass murder to speak of. So a relatively peaceful transition from kings in the Dark Ages to the nobility, to the tyrants, and then full democracy in a level that you don't see anywhere else in Greeks. All the Greeks had some element of democracy, even Sparta, but not to this level, not where every male participates. 100% male participation, and they love it. They crave this. Once they have it, the citizens of Athens will crave this. A passion for politics, a belief that they have accomplished something great and take pride in it. And we, looking back in time, see that they have something really great here. We look at them as the model for how democracy should function. They take a pride in this, they own it, they believe in it, and this is where the warrior aspect comes into it, and the fact that they were already good warriors, but now they have something really strong to fight for. They have achieved something really great. And a really vibrant culture. They will maintain their warrior culture and a vibrant artistic culture. We see it in all aspects. You really start to see it grow now that democracy flourishes. You start to see Athens really flourish as a city of art. There are a few curiosities to speak of, though. If this were just a high school class, we would just say democracy, and we're finished with that. But now that we're in college and upper level, we can discuss some curiosities. For instance, ostracism. The Athenians will have a system called ostracism. What is ostracism? We still have this word today. It means to shun somebody. Well, that's what they were doing. They would exile. If a vote will be taken, and if your vote goes against you, you could be exiled from the city for 10 years. This is a social death. There's nowhere for you to go. Maybe if you're in a part of a war, you might could go to the enemy, but there's nowhere really for you to go. The vote was taken on pieces of broken pottery. Today we would use paper for voting, but they used broken pottery. It's everywhere. It's useless. And so you could actually write on it for taking votes. Those pieces of pottery are called ostracons, and that's where the word ostracism, a vote taken on these pottery shards, could go against you. It's kind of rare because you need 6,000 votes in the assembly. That would be a large percentage of the population. You would have had to done something really, really bad that the population, the entire city, believes that you need to go. The idea here is that you can eliminate troublemakers this way. We don't need to have a jail necessarily. If someone commits a bad crime against the city, we can just remove them. You have broken the trust of the city and you must leave now. Also to prevent further tyrants. We've had a series of tyrants. We've achieved full democracy. We don't need tyrants anymore. And so this would stop a dictator from arising. The ostracism can be abused, though. This is one of the strange aspects of it, is that once trouble starts to arise, when the city starts to go bad, you look for scapegoats, and they will find scapegoats. Anybody a general who lost a battle, a philosopher who is teaching strange ideas. Socrates, for instance, it can be abused. There's a picture of some ostracons. We found them all over Athens, kind of piles of them, at the junkyard, just chunking these ostracons away. Another thing to look at is slavery. We talked about slavery before, that they did away with slavery of citizens, but what about slavery of other people? And this will come up eventually. Once they start waging war outside of Greece, which we're going to see, then you're going to start seeing them have slaves, foreigners as slaves. Eventually up to 100,000, possibly even more. That's a lot of slaves there in the city. That would be possibly 3 times the population of Athenian citizens, or slaves. What sort of slavery are we talking about? We're talking about small farms, owned by a small farmer, maybe 1 or 2 slaves working on the farm, possibly a business. For instance, let's say a barrel maker or a carpenter or a shoemaker might have a slave or 2 working in the shop with him. So it's small-time slavery. Eventually, though, it reaches the point where there are so many slaves that the Athenians don't do labor anymore. They will just turn it over to slaves. You don't need to work. They reach this point. This is when slavery, not a good thing anytime, but slavery really starts to have an impact in this great city. On the brighter side, when you read about Athenian slavery, you'll read that they can be freed, which is nice. They could even be adopted. If the family liked you, you could be adopted into the family. So those are the nice aspects of it. I do want to add that you could also be sentenced to death If you were sent to a mine, you're going to die there eventually. If you're sent to row on a ship, during a time of no wind or against a wind, you'll row until you die. So don't be deceived that slavery was all nice and gentle. There is a type of slavery that if the cards went against you, that you could be, death easily. So eventually in Athens, it becomes so great and slavery becomes so intense that the Athenians actually believe that this is the norm. This is the way life should be. We have read that they have a belief. They wrote a lot, and they wrote about slavery. And one of their quotes, that physical labor, actually spoils the body. This makes us weak, and it hurts our body if we actually do physical labor, and it debilitates the mind. We should concentrate on the intellect. And so let the slaves do the work while we Athenians use our minds. In fact, even Aristotle, the brightest of the Athenians, the one we hold up as like this intellectual Superman, even he had some ugly comments about slavery, that as he viewed slaves, that some people, the people we've enslaved, they're just fit for slavery. Not us Athenians, we're great people, but other people are just fit for slavery. So I just want to warn you about slavery. It's not all fun and games, and it's not nice slavery, and it does hurt Athens that they've become dependent upon slavery. They will also watch their citizenship. Even if you are freed as a slave, you'll not achieve the same citizenship as a true Athenian. In fact, they will be very careful to watch their bloodlines. They will want to be careful of who is a true Athenian by blood. And this is done to protect the land. As the city starts getting bigger and wealthier, the land becomes more valuable, and the city grows very, very wealthy eventually, as we'll see. Another curious word that the Athenians have, Aristotle, the great philosopher, used a term a lot called the idiot. This is a Greek word, idiot. He would refer to the idiots of Athens, idiotis. These were people who didn't participate. When you're running a democracy and everyone's so passionate about it, there are a few people who just drift away from it. And should we let their vote count? He talked about this, that some people don't seem to be involved in politics, and yet we're letting them vote, and this seems to disrupt the elections, that maybe we should not let everyone participate. Maybe there should be a rule that only if you understand what we're debating, because democracy can be manipulated. Wealthy men can buy votes of these idiots, as he called them, and people could come in and cast a vote about something they didn't know about, and this could disrupt democracy. So democracy in Athens, we still hold it up as like a great event in history, especially here in America, where we pride ourselves on our democracy, and we look back at these Athenians and their democracy. I do want to remind you, though, that this is on a small scale. America is a gigantic country now, originally just 13 colonies, and that was large. But Athens was on a small scale, just a small city, homogeneous population, in a unique situation. Just Greece, this whole thing is unique. They never give full power. They were very wary of dictatorship. They used tyrants to work toward democracy, and then once they had democracy, they made sure to stop tyrants. This would be what the ostracism was about, to make sure that no individual took over the city, to make sure that no group took over, so you don't see political parties developing here. All the elections are pretty fluid. Really, the city being so small and so homogeneous that there really aren't a whole lot of interest that break them into parties. They basically stay as a one voting block, swaying a little bit here and there, but nothing that really divides them. You don't see an issue that really splits them into some kind of civil war. And also just want to remind you that this is their life. This state, I described it as a beehive. A Greek city state is like a beehive, and these are the bees. I mean, this is their everything about them is this world. This will be like a small town that is constantly thinking about its future, and so they take a lot of pride in their state, which is their society.